Hi. The learning experience that I chose, that I planned and developed for Alex, was an all about me tell aloud storyboard, in which my objective was to have Alex, speak and talk, using language that he was familiar with, and to talk about things that he was comfortable and familiar with. So to talk about himself and his family. My objective was, for Alex to share information and ideas speaking clearly, and to also use language to create an oral narrative about his own personal experiences. The domains that I focused on were language and literacy, the strand being listening and speaking. The substrand is language, use of conventions. Children understand and use language to communicate with others effectively, which, telling the story, he was communicating with myself. And foundation would be 1.2, speak clearly enough to be understood by familiar adults and children. So when he's speaking, he'd be speaking to myself and his peers. The domain in English language development is speaking. Substrand 3.0, children use language to create oral narratives about their personal experiences. So the storyboard was about himself and his own experiences. The foundation being to use English to talk about personal experiences, may complete a narrative in home language while using some English, which he did. He did switch back and forth from his native language, Punjabi, and used English with a lot of, the words that he was quite familiar with, or objects he was familiar with. We used a magnetic board with different characters and different items like food and house and cars and different people for his mother and father and grandparents, siblings, and things like that. There was different items for him to pick from. So the anticipatory setup was, I had Alex make a character of himself, which I placed on a magnetic strip, so that he can use for himself in the storyboard. He was able to, decorate it with dark hair like he looked, and dark eyes, and he, put different colored clothes on that, the colors he liked. So that's how I introduced, Alex to the story, to how to do the storyboard. I also modeled and told him, use the characters to represent myself, and I told a story about myself. So I modeled and used myself as an example so that he knew how to use the storyboard. I also probed and prompted, Alex, when he got stuck. He was very receptive with doing it. He was very excited to talk about himself. But I used things like, okay, well, what's your favorite food? What's your favorite food to eat? And he wasn't quite sure what I meant. So I had to, change up how I said it. I asked him, what does he like to eat? And I showed him different types of food that we had there. And, he said, and he would put the different characters or different objects next to him. And he said, I like apple. And he used some words in his native language, which I wasn't quite sure, but I think he meant potatoes. And then he said corn. He liked corn. I didn't have potatoes there. There wasn't an object for potatoes. But when he described it to me as best he could, it sounded like that. There really wasn't any setbacks. It was just I had to do a little probing for him so that he understood what I wanted, or just to get him to talk a little bit more. I asked him how many in his family, and he said family, and he would put his parents, and then he put his grandparents up there, people that represented them. Let me see what else. The assessment I used is I wrote down words that he said really clearly in English. Like I said, he said apple, I like, mom, dad, car. He put the car next to them that he drives to school. I asked him, how do you get to school? And he said car. And he said school. And I asked him if he had friends. So I wrote those things down. That was my assessment and what he said in his own language. I also read him a story. That way he, a story about, it included, kids from different cultures and things like that. That way he saw that there are differences in different, types of children or different children. And that was it. It was really good to get him to speak and talk about himself. He really enjoyed it. He enjoyed telling me all about himself. He was very, like I said, receptive to talking about himself and talking about his own experiences. He said he had a dog. And yeah, it was a very good learning experience for him.